Hey, welcome to A Mile Deep with me, Benjamin Owen. Thank you so much for listening. This is episode 0. I'm recording this episode today because I just needed to get going. And also I wanted to share with you why I'm creating this podcast and why you might want to listen and why you personally might want to listen right now, because there are going to be things that I'm going to share on this podcast that are going to help you in your life. Like, my promise to you is that when you listen to this podcast, there is going to be pragmatic, implementable information, wisdom, and stories that will drastically shift your impact and your income. And the 3 things that I talk about most are your body, your brain, and your business. Whether you're in a career or you're a business person, entrepreneur, I will talk about 3 things that will help you radically shift your results. And the reason I wanted to create this podcast is because I have learned so much from listening to audiobooks from authors, from speakers, and from people who I've ended up actually investing in. They've been my mentors, I've worked with them, or I've done a podcast with them in the past. And I'm so grateful to those people who have done podcasts. I wanted to give back to you, those people who want to listen to a bit more. I go a bit deeper than your usual self-development. I've been in self-development since I was 19 years old. And I've learned so much that I want to share, because I know in my heart of heart, it will drastically shift some of the struggles and challenges or the goals that you may have. And on today's podcast, in episode 0, I want to share with you what's going to come in the first 5 episodes of this podcast. So if you've found this on iTunes, or you've been recommended by a friend, or you just kind of stumbled upon this podcast, or I've actually sent it to you because it's my episode 0, is that this is what we're going to cover in the first 5 episodes. Recently, I was given a book by a friend of mine, a lady called Hina Khan. Hina is, I co-coach with her on one of her programs. She is a huge inspiration to me. She said, Ben, read this book. We're going to be working through it. And as I read through this book, I saw an absolute ton of unconscious competence. I saw a pathway that I'd been leading clients and customers and people who coach with me through for the last 10 years. I saw how it existed in body transformation. I saw how I'd been doing it in personal transformation and business and career transformation. So I've been working with leaders, walking them down this path for a number of years, and having read the book, it made it conscious competence. I was like, this is what I've been doing. I've been doing it successfully for a number of years. And what I noticed, that there were 5 key waypoints along this journey that help someone go from having a 2x vision, where they saw themselves having what is I call a default future, a future which is kind of just a little bit better than their current reality. It's safe. It's where they don't have to take many risks. It's where they can stay fairly the same. They don't have to change much as a person. The results might improve, but not substantially. And I believe that 95%+ of the population live by a 2x future. They create a 2x future where they see their life in the future just being a little bit better than what it is now. And for years, I've been helping clients by asking this question: what's an impossible goal? What's a 10x version of this goal? What's a goal so big that you absolutely must change in order to achieve it? I used to ask this when clients walked into my office in body transformation. They would say, I want to tone up and lose a little bit of weight. And I'd say, well, that's a great way to look at it. But hang on a second. What happens if you were to look at becoming an athlete? If you were to regard yourself as an athlete, what would you create as a goal? And some people would say, I'll do a marathon, I'd run a 5K, I'd go across and do marathon de sable, whatever it would be. But those people who created their goals in line with a 10x vision, something that's so big it forced them to change from their current reality, always did exceptionally well. And looking back on those folk, the only difference is that they created a goal which was 10x instead of 2x. Now, I love the saying by Steve Jobs that you can only connect the dots looking backwards. Now, when I connected the dots looking backwards, what were the 5 steps that these people took when they wanted to transform, when they wanted to create what I would call an inflection point, a real change, where you could point on a map of your life and you say, that is the point. That is the point where I changed. And I started looking at what were the similarities, what were the things in the research and the data from scientific studies, from psychology, from psychotherapy, story, and publications out there. And what could I see in my world? What have I seen actually work for my clients? And I brought that together into a system, which I called the 5 steps to go 10x. Okay. And the reason I wanted to create that is because when you are wanting to change your life, when you're wanting to create something that is like a huge vision, we often massively get in the way. And what I want to share with you quickly before we go into the 5 steps in the next 5 podcasts is why they all fit together so nicely. So the first step that someone needs to take when they want to go 10x, when they want to create an inflection point, is to create an impossible goal and a vision for their life that is so big, that is so grand, that is so worthwhile in trying to achieve. It forces them to behave and act in a different way. This is a manager that goes from saying, I want to be the best in my town, to I want to have the best franchise or the best business in the country or in the world. And I remember when I was talking to my staff back in when I had a fitness transformation business, I said to them, guys, our rivals, the people that we are trying to compete against is not the local trainers in our town, because if we're competing against them, our standard is going to be marginally lower. We are competing with Netflix. Every single day when someone goes home at the end of the day, the decision to go and train in our gym at the time or to watch Netflix is a daily competition. If we can make the gym so exciting, so amazing that someone will choose that over sitting down to watch Netflix, we've won the battle. And when we started competing with Netflix, the vision, not just for myself, but for my trainers, my coaches, and the people who, when I used to share this with the clients as well, is like, yeah, actually, that is the battle that I face every day. Do I just slump onto the sofa or do I come and train? And when we created this huge vision, that is when there was an exponential shift from just being the best gym in the town to being the best gym in the country. So what the first step on your transformational journey is to create such an incredible vision. It excites you. It excites the people around you. Say you've got staff members. One of the things that the staff members will always be subconsciously asking themselves is, does this business have room for me to grow? And if you've got great talent in a business, they will not stick around if your vision isn't big enough. This is one of the common problems I saw in so many leaders. Whereas if you've got a huge vision where someone can say, I can see myself in that setup and making it work, and that aligns with where I want to go and what I want to create, you're on to a winner. So that's the first step. I'll be doing a podcast after this one where I'm going to go a mile deep into vision creation. There's going to be so much value in there. You could listen to that and implement it straight away. The second step is obstacles, because what often happens is someone will have a big vision of where they want to go, how they want to transform, and then woof, the first thing that comes up is doubt, I can't do it, not enoughness, shame, perhaps lack, all those things that strangle our progress in the short term and the long term, right? So what we want to get clear on is what are the obstacles that have got in your way in the past and how you can make a pragmatic step-by-step plan to overcome them. Now, they could be internal obstacles, which I call part X. There's a part of you that is there to X out your potential, or they can be external obstacles. These are things like resources, time, it could be geographic, where you live in the world, all those things. And we want to get clear on what kind of obstacles are getting in your way. Because as soon as we can create a plan to move through those first obstacles, you can get something called momentum. One of the biggest, most important things that you're trying to create on your transformational journey. Now, if you think about this, if you started a body transformation or you wanted to lose weight, then you've got the obstacles, which are the kids. The kids like, okay, well, I can't I can't do it during this time because the kids are up. I can't do that time because I'm picking up the kids. We come up with pragmatic, logical solutions that can help you move forwards. And this is where things like hard conversations comes in, putting yourself first comes in, and it really helps you align with the steps that you need to take. Now, once we've removed the obstacles, we need to look at the next step. Step 3 is called 10x or transformation, whatever you want to call it. It's not really that important. What is important is knowing exactly what that process is. In my eyes, transformation is about letting go of the things that are your zone of incompetence, competence, and excellence, and then stepping into your zone of genius. Now, that isn't always easy because you may be being rewarded for the things that you're competent at or excellent at. Again, I'm going to reference when I was a trainer. When I was a trainer and I had big groups, 30, 40, 50, 100 people in a class, I was exceptional at giving all my energy, making people laugh, having fun, being an absolute stickler for form, going up to people and making them feel like they were the only person in the session, probably giving them a hard time at the same time. I used to get a few people telling me to F off and all sorts, but I would go up to people and give them so much of my attention, even though the class was really big. And when I made a decision that I didn't want to be a trainer anymore, that was met with resistance. It was met with people saying, is this a good idea? Are you sure you want to do that? It'll be sad that you're leaving, all that sort of stuff. And so many people, so many leaders fail to make that step. They fail to make that step because of the resistance that they get from other people. They fail to step from their zone of excellence into the zone of genius. And sometimes when we look at transformation, it's about getting rid of 80% of the things that you do day to day. So if you're a leader listening to this, I could guarantee if you were to book a conversation with me and we were to look at your calendar, I can guarantee that within a number of minutes, you and I could remove 50% of your operational activity. And the reason I know this, I've done it with multiple high-level CEOs, managing directors, managers, and entrepreneurs. We've looked at their calendar and looked at like, how could we remove 50% of the things that you just shouldn't be doing? And what this does, it creates space, bandwidth, actual space where people can go and take action, or they can think. They can think strategically, they can think with leverage, and they get their time back. Because ultimately, 10x is about doing less and doing things better. And then being also rewarded by being able to see your kids more, having more time to go and work on yourself, being able to train every day, being able to eat well because you don't have to rush every single lunch. All those things that you probably want as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And I can honestly share, since really committing to this way of living, my life has changed exponentially too. So once you've done the vision, you've looked at the obstacles, and you've set about your transformation, we want to look at implementation. Now, leaders with huge vision, without the ability to implement, are just dreamers, and they piss off their staff. They annoy the people around them because all they ever see is these big hopes, dreams, and ideas with zero execution. Now, if you're a leader who's commonly saying what they want to create, but not implementing, I can guarantee you're very frustrated as well. So what we've got to do is optimize the steps that you need to take so they're logical, sequential, and actually potent enough to move the business or your vision forwards. Now, what I often found, especially when I was coaching leaders and people, especially even in body transformation, is that people would do a hell of a lot of stuff that doesn't move the needle. For example, Mary wants to lose some weight. Instead of removing the 3 digestive biscuits she has with an 11 o'clock cup of tea at work, she would go and do multiple laps of the Great Orme, which was like a 10K hilly walk to burn some calories. And that would take her 2 hours. And then she would go and reward herself with the biscuits anyway, instead of Sheila, who would just remove the 2 biscuits. And I know this is a weight loss example, but this exists in business too. People will do things that fill their ego and not their bank balance. They'll go do speaking, meetings, networking events, and they'll do a hell of a lot of stuff that just doesn't bring them in any income or have any impact on the vision that they're trying to create. And it's about removing that stuff and also implementing things that have a lot of power. Now, when I was in university and school, if I look back, I was your typical ADHD type personality. I couldn't focus for more than a minute. I would struggle to get details down onto paper, and I would never get anything done. There was a joke in my university house that I was the guy that moved the fastest and travelled the least distance. And so I started to understand that in order for me to get anywhere in life, I needed to learn how to do what's called deep work. So implementation is about learning to create, what I would say, massive spaces where you can implement really potent actions that move your vision forward. And not a lot of people have that. They waste a hell of a lot of time. And just in that step alone, you will see massive shifts. So you can consume these next 4 podcasts. I'm going to talk about the 5th in a second. These 4 podcasts, and if you just go and take the implementation advice from each one, you will see massive change in your life, in your work. And please, if you find it helpful, share it with a friend. The reason I've put these together is that I know that just doing these steps will help you enormously. The final step, the final pillar on the 5 steps to go 10x is support. You may be an entrepreneur, you might be a business owner, you might be a leader of some description, but you're in an environment which strangles your creativity. It could be you're in a family that they see you so much smaller than you want to be, or you could be in a part of your life where you just haven't got that social support network. There was a study done in Harvard, and they looked at those who thrived versus dived. And what happened is when they started to struggle on exams and in certain research projects, the people that got the best results, were the ones who invested in their social support network. They had a deep and broad social support network. And why am I sharing this with you? So many people have neither. They don't have deep relationships with someone they can really invest and talk about their struggles and challenges with, nor do they have a lot of people. So that's why I've always chosen to be in masterminds, group coaching systems, and I've had peers and support networks to help me with my projects. And if you are an entrepreneur, maybe you've gone online during the pandemic, or maybe you're a business owner and you feel lonely because you've got no one to talk to about the things that you want to do, because you feel like you should always be strong, you can't be weak, you can't show up as insecure or unsure. This is why you need a coach and you need a support group. And this is so important. And I've seen it, I created a men's group, which over 3 years helped so many men just share some of the struggles and challenges that they had. And it exponentially shifted their personal performance. We didn't talk one iota about strategy. And men would come to the group, they would share their struggles and challenges, like some of the things going on at home, how they felt, some of the demons, some of the dark parts. And just by having that normalized and accepted, all of a sudden they would be way more strategic, way more successful, and have way more personal momentum and power. And why is that? Because these are all subconscious resistance. These are the things that are weighing on your shoulder if you're a leader. And this is why I created the support component of the 5 steps. When we can remove the brakes, when we can add support, when we can remove the resistance, you will move to and flow towards your goals way faster, way faster. So they are the 5 steps: vision, obstacles, transformation, implementation, and support. Over the next 5 podcasts, I'm going to walk through each one in detail. And what I suggest you do, like with many podcasts, there's 2 people on the call, 2 people on the show or something like that, and it will be fairly conversational. I will be bringing in guests and speakers and people that I've learned from in the subsequent podcasts in the future. But the first 5 podcasts on this podcast you'll experience are those 5 steps. And then what I'm going to do, and these are my plans, this is episode 0, is interview experts, people that I've worked with, and those who I've worked with personally in order to go a mile deep into those 5 areas. You'll hear from people who have helped leaders with vision, who've overcome massive personal obstacles, those who are absolutely savage at implementation, and equally those who can articulate your mind better than you can, and you'll feel super supported. So I'm excited to go on this journey. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. This was episode 0. I decided to create a podcast this morning. I recorded episode 0 today. This is this is implementation 101. Start low, go slow, but I'm aiming really high. Thank you for being me on this podcast today. Take care.